I have never played a single Midnight Club, but today that changes. This is every single Midnight Club ever made. And in this video, we won't just be playing but completing every single one of these, beginning with Midnight Club Street Racing. Our introduction into the series is with this yellow taxi, accompanied by Emilio. Emilio at the very start tours us around the city, until requiring us to race him in order to prove our worth. Admittedly, in a taxi, it's not exactly the easiest of races, but once you do beat him, this acts as the introduction into the Midnight Club. You see, when you beat a racer, including Emilio, you get their number, and consequently you can phone them up to challenge them to subsequent races. Generally, each racer has around 3 races you phone them up and challenge them to, until you win every race they have, and win every car they have to offer, and no longer want to race you. This is a cycle that repeats itself a few times. Now, currently we're in the streets of New York, and in New York, there's 3 different races we have to beat before we can eventually move on to the next city. Those 3 races involve Emilio, Larry, and Kiko. As I previously mentioned, they all have their own set of races to beat them in, and their own set of vehicles to get once beating them.
Good job. You deserve to win this time.
I was under the impression that I'd be able to move on to the next city once beating all 3 of them. However, there's one more person that shows up to challenge you before you can continue on.
My name's Kareem, and I am so fresh that the girl can't settle for nothing less. I'm the champ.
The New York City champ, Kareem, shows up once you beat every single racer in New York and acts as the barrier of entry between you and the next city. He occupied the fastest car we've seen yet. Just catching up to him in order to challenge him was enough of a task, let alone the race he proposed. Thankfully for us, the race he did propose is a winner takes all. One race for the right to move to the next city. London is indeed where we end up next. Now, unfortunately, the game does only have 2 cities, meaning we're already over halfway there, except there is a little surprise at the end. So I'm sure you saw that trophy we earned for beating the city champ, right? Well, we still need 2 more trophies, one of which we get here in London. The first racer we tackled followed us here from New York. Kareem made a return and clearly invested in some newer vehicles as well. However, his cars were all muscle orientated, and around the tight streets of London, he stood no chance against the vehicles we used in comparison. I did, however, find his vehicles useful in taking down our next racer, Emily. Emily had what I believe to be the best vehicles in London, so I wanted to make sure to take advantage of being able to take her car before going up against our next opponents and ultimately the city champion. This did pose to be a challenge though. Her races were suited to making sure her car performed the best. But after enough tries, we were able to just beat her in the events that she offered up, and consequently receiving her car as a reward. With this car by our side, I wasn't too concerned about the upcoming races. The next of which, and the final to take down in London before the champ, was Lucas. Lucas, I guess, was embracing the city we were racing in because he chose a Mini Cooper to race in, which, needless to say, I wasn't too worried about. Meaning we were at the foot of the arrival of a very important figure.
Darren Farrick, fastest man landing.
The London City champ was in town, Darren Thurrock to be exact. He challenged us, driving the Amata series of cars, one of the best in the game. And similarly to New York, it was one race, winner takes all. He provided some tough competition, especially in his car, and the race itself was one of the longest yet in the entire game. Thankfully though, considering the experience I now had in this car, not having had to have switched for a while, I was much more confident than before. I mentioned earlier there were 3 trophies, the second of which we just received. However, we had a little surprise waiting in store for us to get that third one. After beating Darren, Anika shows up, the world champion. Reigning from Tokyo, she shows up in London to see whether there's anyone worthy enough to take her title. And unfortunately for her, we were willing to challenge her. Midnight Club 2. This game has quite the reputation. That guy you just saw? His name is Moses, and this is our first car. Moses shows us around the city and takes us to our first couple races to partake in. Now, we end up getting a newer car pretty quickly, and actually, that's going to become quite a consistent occurrence. You see, this game builds on the foundation from the first a lot, but one thing that is pretty much identical is the whole racer dynamic.
Hey bro, Moses here. Don't forget to flash your beams when you need to find somebody you want to race.
You find a racer, you flash him, pause, beat them, and then you take their vehicle. In pretty much every circumstance, you get a vehicle that's either better or as good as the one you're using. Where we are currently in the game is LA, but this isn't the only city we race in. What it is the easiest because, oh lord, once we get to the last couple cities, this game is genuinely like Sekiro levels of rage. It's like, it's a skill issue, but I'm still getting fucked. I can't do nothing. I hate my fucking life. Oh my god. The game doesn't stray too far away from this formula. Find a racer, beat the racer, and take their car. This is until you unlock the next city. LA was just an introduction into what Midnight Club 2 was really about. And after beating every racer in the city, you're introduced to the city champion. For LA, it was Dice.
Another rookie looking for a title shot. Try to take what's mine. He might have some juice, but I'm gonna drop some knowledge on this fool. Careful, I got a reputation.
Beating the city champion was the only way to get into the next city, and there's champions for every city you race in. Dice had confidence, but no skills to back it up. Once you beat the champion, you take his car and the right to move to the next city.
This guy seems like he really has a shot to tear it up Euro style. You ever drag Parisian streets at mega speed?
Paris is where we ended up next, the second of 3 cities in the game. A city which introduces an underground, or the catacombs, to mix up the races and introduce more risk to the stakes. Largely though, the same gameplay loop is at play. The set of vehicles is something that does start to ramp up in Paris, which is both a good and bad thing. Bad because the races become much more difficult, but good because if we do beat them, we get to use their much better car. Actually, talking about the difficulty, Paris is where we do start to see some difficult races prop up. The difficulty here, however, is more so surrounding the races just being really quick. The next city is no doubt 10 times harder than this, but for a different reason than you might think. We'll get to that soon. I'm in a Volkswagen. These guys are in Porsches. In between the races, you are able to explore the city at your fingertips, but aside from challenging the races, there isn't really much else to do, but of course, admiring the beautiful scenery. This does change in the games coming up though, but we'll get to that. Paris is home to even more races than we saw in LA, with 8 different races, including the city champion, but this is also home to the best personality in the game. Just listen to this dude.
Hey, I won't kill you. Yet.
But as I mentioned, the city champion, Parfait, is not to be underestimated. After getting through the aforementioned races, I thought I knew the Paris map well enough, but the city champion really pushes the limits of difficulty that Paris poses. It got to the point where if you could beat these kinds of races first time, look, hats off to you. These joints were taking me at least 5 tries, minimum, probably even more. Move! The problem with these city champions is you don't just have to beat them once, you have to beat them multiple times and on different courses. Now this is actually true for every racer, but the city champions really exemplify how drawn out some of these races can end up being. Nevertheless, when you do beat them, there is no other feeling like it, further emphasized by being able to take their car.
Trash. I hope you lose your control and sink.
I don't give a fuck, just give me that Porsche.
If you can't pay rent, so I place my bet.
What got you shook on this Saturday? I take my L and I hold my place. I split my L and I go away. You left a spell on my Saturday.
Tokyo is our final locale. This city right here is the Dark Souls of the racing game genre. This city is home to, no word of a lie, the hardest races ever seen in a racing game. Not including F-Zero GX. Don't get me started on that. Tokyo also contains 8 different races, besides a not so friendly face we'll get introduced to later. But the first of our competition is Ricky.
You? Ooh, my life is too easy.
The thing about Tokyo is that it consists of constant action. It catches you out by just not even giving you a chance to breathe. Aside from all the neons and the noise, it's made up of tight alleys and winding intersections, all the while having long stretches of expressways built into the races as well. Not only do you need to master the turns and the traffic, but also have a car fast enough to not get outpaced on any of the freeways. It's genuinely just a long game of trial and error. After so many tries, you'll know the race like it's the back of your hand, and only then is there really a chance of you being able to win. That is, if you're able to avoid what feels like the scripted traffic. I swear, they have to have coded the traffic to appear at the perfect times to fuck you up. Through all the trials and tribulations, you do find yourself with a pretty nice collection of cars at your disposal. To do what with, you might ask? Well, challenge the Tokyo City Champion, driving none other than an R34 of course. Our Tokyo Champion goes by the name of Makoto.
Anything you have to say, drive.
For a moment, I genuinely couldn't believe I actually beat him. I had heard so much talk about how this game holds the title as one of the hardest racing games ever made, and at this point, I just thought I had beaten it. That relief, however, didn't last long. After beating Makoto and taking his car, we were introduced to Savo. You see, every city we've beaten so far had their own city champion, but Savo right here, Savo was the final challenge. Savo was the world champion. Considering what I had to get through to get this R34, I was quite literally terrified to race this man. And just like that, I'd beaten him twice, in his own city. I'd won, right? To my horror, Savo works differently to every single other racer in the game. Savo isn't impressed with beating him a mere 2 times. No, Savo requires you to beat him in every single city that we've been to. As such, after beating him in Tokyo, he takes us to Paris and challenges us to race him there as well.
Come on, lad. You have more in you than that.
And just like that, we were back in LA. All we needed to do was to beat Savo one final time, in the same city that we began the story in.
Problems are not with the car, but in your mind.
This right here is the game that changed everything. We were introduced with a selection of cars that was tough to pick from. But I ended up going with the Golf. And getting the chance to test it out in our first race. To unlock new races, you have to challenge the races you find around the city, and they'll be in all different type of cars. More specifically, they'll belong to a club, and beating them will unlock their club's races. For example, for beating this racer, it unlocks the tuner races for us, which is a perfect starting point for our R32. Golf R32. We're not a Godzilla yet. A few races in, we unlock our first ability. Yes, this game has abilities. More specifically, we unlocked Zone. There are multiple abilities which cater to the different types of vehicles in the game, but we'll get to the other ones shortly. Zone is objectively the best ability in the game. Think of Speedbreaker from a black box Need for Speed game. It's basically that, but in this kind of game, it's a complete lifesaver with all the chaos that is ensued. Now, similarly to Midnight Club 2, this game consists of multiple cities, of which we begin in San Diego. We'll consider this the early game, even though we'll be returning here later on for something, but I'll get to that later. What's more important is that I found myself eligible to enter my first tournament, the first of its kind in the franchise. Tournaments in this game especially are incredibly important. Tournaments act as an easy way to get new cars for completely free. Warranted, you have to win a series of races. We'll get to why having more cars is important in a moment, but before that, I tried beating the tournament in my little old Golf, and it actually worked, netting us a few cars as a reward. One of the cars ended up being another tuner vehicle, so I said goodbye to my Golf. This meant, at this moment in time, we had our Lexus, a Bel Air and a Chrysler. The important distinction between them all is that they all belong to different classes. Our Lexus is a tuner, the Bel Air a muscle car, and our Chrysler a luxury vehicle. Owning a vehicle of a certain class unlocks the ability to partake in those classes' events. So with our new additions to the garage, we could partake in both muscle races and in luxury races now as well. Even with all of that in mind, I ended up buying a bike because I wanted to be cool and do wheelies. So I partook in some chopper races for the meantime. Fuck this shit, I'm done. Okay, well, that didn't go exactly as planned, but since I was back in a vehicle with 4 wheels, let me tell you exactly what the hell we're actually spending so much time on in these cities. Remember those classes I mentioned earlier? Well, there's actually 7 different classes of vehicles in the game, and for each of those, there's around 15 different races we have to beat with that type of vehicle. I know, a little monotonous, but they are broken up amongst the 3 different cities in the game, meaning in every city there's around 5 different events for each different class of vehicle. We're working on beating these and then clearing up the remaining competition to become the US champion. With the goal in mind, I took advantage of every vehicle at my disposal and cleaned out all of the events I had available in San Diego. In doing so, I challenged the American Royalty Car Club. They use muscle cars, and as such, I had to use a muscle car as well. The important thing here, after beating the 3rd race in the series, I unlocked Raw. Raw is the second of the 3 abilities in the game, and is used both by muscle cars and by choppers as well. The roar itself is like a shockwave, pushing all surrounding cars away from your vehicle. And it does work on opponents as well. Now, beyond the races themselves and the tournaments previously mentioned, the racers roaming the streets still made their return into this game too. However, their importance stands to be solely for completion purposes, outside of unlocking the clubs. Okay, enough talking, it's time to move to Atlanta. Atlanta is the 2nd city in the game, and considering the change, I decided it was right to switch to something that might be able to keep up with all of those Hellcats. With the Supra, we cleaned out all of the tuner races in Atlanta, and then I purchased myself a little SL500. This, to me, gave me the impression of being one of the better luxury vehicles in the game. So I bought it, customized it, and put it to the test against the Atlanta competition. Once beating the luxury races, I swiftly moved on to challenging the racers and taking on our first tournament in Atlanta as well. There were 2 available to me at the time, and the first one I tried, but I literally could not beat for the life of me. Not at the moment at least. Thankfully, I did try my luck at the second one as well. That one was much more forgiving. I will admit, after changing cities, I did see some difficulties start to prop up. Nothing in comparison to Midnight Club 2, but as we progress in Midnight Club 3, the difficulty does start to ramp up. Let's see what it looks like in the final city. After beating the tournament, I was surprised to see that we were awarded with an Escalade for winning the tournament, allowing us to very easily begin to tackle the new SUV events that have propped up because of our new vehicle. Since this was the first time we had received an SUV, these races in Atlanta were the first of their kind that I was completing regarding SUV completion. What this meant, however, and confused me to begin with, is that you do still have to return to previous cities with your new vehicle and complete said races in that vehicle class there as well. This is also evident for the classes of vehicles we haven't even seen yet. After finishing up with the Escalade, we were getting through the progression in this game with a fair amount of haste. Another new class of vehicle was unlocked as well, sports bikes. So I decided to waste no time and get accustomed to the original Riders Club, except I found out I hated using the sports bikes. I tried a race once or twice and realised this was something we're going to be leaving until later. Meaning I did have a decision to make. What exactly was I going to do next? I figured it was time to consider a couple new additions to the garage. As much as I loved my Supra, it was time to move on to a better tuner vehicle. Something that could not only carry me in the tuner events, but also the tournaments too. Something like a Dodge Viper. Plus I dripped that out too. But the Viper wasn't the only addition. You see, B class was the highest class in the game for every single vehicle besides sport bikes and exotics. So I decided to take advantage of this opportunity and buy some vehicles that would better suit me in the long run. So in addition to the Viper, I also tricked out a Dodge truck as well, serving as possibly the best SUV in the game. This decision led me to being able to complete more SUV races and encountering the final ability in the game, Aggro. What the? Aggro is exclusive to SUVs and luxury vehicles, and what it does is basically make you invulnerable from any collisions, not just damage, but even the physical knockback you'd receive from hitting another car. It suits the vehicle type well, but is low-key aye at best. With our new vehicles, I was cleaning up in Atlanta, and I even hopped on my chopper and did some of those events as well, which meant it was time for something new. Time to move to Detroit.
Visiting with some friends of mine.
B.I.G. Okay, I'm in motion. I'm rolling and smoking and rolling like I'm locomotion. I'm walking outside and I'm causing commotions. Got perp and champagne, that's a real nigga potion. I'm burning bread, toasting and joking, cause I went from views from my mom's house to views of the ocean.
Detroit was home to some of the hardest competition yet, with confusing courses, but an incredibly interactive playground for us to race in.
A lot of serious races in town right now. But this is Detroit, Motor City. They'll race anything here. And the standards are high. Not like those punks you've been racing down in Atlanta. Here, guys care about speed, first and last.
The first races I got out of the way were those belonging to the big players, the SUV club. Now, I kind of got carried away in Detroit and began to clean house. I beat all of the SUV, the tuner, the chopper, and even the muscle car races. And keep in mind, we're in the final city, so all of those aforementioned clubs are now completed. I did all of this and finally got introduced to the last vehicle class yet to be discovered. After beating Angel up in Detroit, we unlocked the ability to buy A-class cars, so immediately I went over to pick my exotic of choice. With our new car, there's only a couple things left to do. First and foremost, revisiting every city and completing every exotic race in the game. And after that, I went back to do all the sports bike races as well. Oh my god. And with every single club beaten, there was one final thing that needed to be done. After beating every club and every tournament, you unlock one final race against Vanessa. A race for the title of the US champ. This is Midnight Club LA, and we get introduced by getting our first car, but more importantly, we meet Buck.
Man, you're funny.
Buck is going to be our go-to guy, showing us all of the opportunities LA has to offer.
Buck doesn't need a stage, people laugh at him just walking down the street.
Soon after that, Buck points us in the direction of a service shop, our one-stop shop for upgrades, new rides, and customization.
I'm telling you, Jeff, the ignition timing is off.
I'm working on it.
You books, buddy?
Yeah, I guess.
This is a full service shop. Performance, body, lights, paints, vinyl, whatever you want. I can also get you new rides, serious rides, no waiting list.
Great, man. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, Hangouts exist. These are introduced as a place to wager. You can put money on the line, but you can also put your car on the line as well. Soon enough, we were challenged to our first pink slip.
Been keeping that car in good shape for me? I hope the interior's clean, dude.
I ended up using the muscle car we got from the pink slip, but I didn't end up liking it, so I switched to a
Black Grand National.
Aside from that, the game also introduced another important character, Annie.
Bruh, what is wrong with you, Brian? You come from Ohio, and why don't you give me back my money? Bruh.
Whatever.
The variety of events begins to expand once we get some standing in the city. Aside from the normal races and hangout spots, we start to see championships, a series of multiple races where you can often win a car for winning. There's also deliveries requiring you to minimize the damage you do to a car when transporting it from one place to another. And also time trials, which put you in another car and see you beat your own time that you placed in that car the first time round. Although I was always concerned I'd softlock myself if I went too fast. After the course of a couple trials, you end up receiving that exact car in which you were using, which we can see here. This Eclipse was my first time trial reward and was the exact change of car I needed at the time. There is also another quite interesting type of event introduced later on, but we'll see that shortly. I ended up using the Eclipse for a little bit, but for the next part of the game, I switched to a lowrider, required for a mission, but actually a lot more fun than I initially thought. Except, well, how do I say this? I'll just let it speak for itself.
Well, if it isn't
Oh,
the friendly
nah, this is
neighborhood
scripted.
policeman.
This shit. Officers, look. Whoa, you hit me. Nah, there's gotta be some sick twisted joke.
You're fire! This man isn't black!
Now, I admit, sometimes it does feel like you're just doing race after race in this game, but we are fulfilling our progression criteria whilst doing this too. There's a few things that make up the progression in this game. Number one, your reputation. After every race, you earn more rep and become more renowned in the city. You unlock more races, more cars, but more importantly, more missions. These missions are number two. Completing the right missions progress certain storylines attached to the standout characters in the game, such as Annie, Buck, Hugo, etc. So to beat this game, it's basically build rep and do the right missions. Choosing the right missions, however, is important because there are a lot of different missions, some of which are just there to fill in the map. However, most of which are important to building ourselves up to be able to challenge the significant figures in the city. Oh yeah, I want to use that. Yeah, we're switching over to a Camaro. Holy shit, this car's so much better than I thought. Oh, as you saw from that clip earlier, this game does have police as well. At least, you would think it does from their introduction, but they're pretty pointless. They don't even try. Okay, enough dilly-dallying. It's time to get serious. It's time to buy an R34. Luckily, it wasn't that expensive, plus it's only a B-class car. B-class from a list of 4. For example, our Volkswagen from the beginning was class D, our Eclipse was C, and this R34 is a B-class. I would show you an example of an A-class car, which is the highest in the game, but we'll actually be running into one pretty shortly. Specifically, when unlocking the beach, Carol introduces us to payback events. These are pretty similar to those you see in Need for Speed Undercover, where you take down rivals' cars. In this game, they're cool. They're cool. Probably because I realized you have to take down 5 people. 5? I gotta kill 5 of these guys? Okay, I've got to use an SUV, but there's 2 Range Rovers in the entire game. That's it. Hello? Now, okay, this is most definitely the easiest Midnight Club by a long shot. Maybe the first one, but out of the 3 latest installments, this is supposedly the easiest. But there was a tournament causing me a fair amount of trouble. Now, this was an event I had to play on hard in order to complete the mission. But even with that stipulation in mind, I wasn't expecting to run into a Lamborghini, Gallardo to be exact. This motherfucker was an issue. The tournaments are 3 races. The winner gets 7 points, second gets 4, third gets 2, and the last place gets 1 point. The person with the most points at the end wins, but this Gallardo was the only one winning. Since the competition was beginning to heat up, I needed to change my approach. So I needed cash. I completed some miscellaneous events, wagered for money, and importantly, pink slipped for people's cars in which I would sell for a quick profit. Soon enough, I found myself buying this pretty thing. Yeah, that Gallardo wasn't beating me this time around. When I tried to customize the Murcielago, however, I noticed it didn't have any of the customization available. And considering how we were pretty far through the game right now, I was perplexed. This is when I did a little research and realized there was a system I hadn't even noticed yet. If we go onto our map really quickly, you can see the reputation bar over here, basically the main form of progression. But then there's also this line below it as well. You see, there are 5 different categories of vehicles in this game: bikes, luxuries, exotics, tuners, and muscles. And each class of vehicle has its own ranking system. For cars, example, there's 5, and for bikes, there's 3. At each level, more customization is unlocked, and since this was my first exotic, we didn't have anything for it just yet. That didn't mean it wasn't fast though. Our new Murcielago was almost too quick, requiring some getting used to, but it did allow us to progress much faster than before. Actually, with that in mind, where were we in terms of progression? In terms of reputation, we were considered a champion in the streets, which is actually quite important. In terms of the hierarchy of ranks, we were getting there, but not exactly number 1 yet. The reasoning for the champion rank being so important is that it paves the way for us to challenge the city champion, the final race in the game. To get to the city champion, however, there are 3 regional champions around LA that we need to take down, and we only get access to them once getting to this reputation rank. After beating all 3 regional champions, we receive a call from someone we know pretty well. Yep, it turns out the city champion of LA was Buck all along. The first person we met in the city. He wasn't racing for fun either. When he races to win. This meant I needed to install some upgrades on my Murcielago before challenging him. With what I thought to be adequate upgrades, we meet him at the Standard Hotel downtown and challenge him. Despite his reputation, he had a pretty normal S600, 5.5 litre V12 pushing over 500 horsepower. But still, we were in a Murcielago. Now, before our time in LA ends, after beating Buck and becoming the city champion, we receive a call from Carol, the coordinator of all our vehicular needs. He tells us about a partnership opportunity. He proposes for us to provide $1 million in investment to co-own his garages around LA. A steep asking price, but one with massive upside, considering if you accept this offer, any and all vehicles or upgrades purchased after this point are completely free. Now, I don't plan on spending too much more time in LA, but for those desiring 100% completion, this would be a no-brainer.
Later.
Later, baby.
Ah, there he is. Too big for the likes of me.
Whatever. It's good to see you, Annie. Yeah. Speaking of money, you still serious about your shop?
Absolutely. I just had it valued. Business is worth $2 million.
So $1 million buys me a 50% share, right?
Welcome aboard! Well, now I want to tell you a little story. This new guy comes to town.
Oh, and when accepting the offer, that's when you officially get the credits too. Damn, wait. I had to pay a ticket just to see the credits? Inflation's crazy.
They got a big ego. The old guy is very handsome.